What is up, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I wanted to go over the basics of units in Dominion 6, just their stats, parameters, kind of how it all works, just so people understand, what to look for, what's a good number, what's a good stat, all this stuff, because as a new player, this can be overwhelming. So I just want to go over it real quick and help people out. So let's look at our units for our current faction. Here they are. We're going to go right away to our most basic unit next to our scout, which is the Satyr Sneak. Now, here's all of their stats and parameters. They actually added icons, which is really nice to help you identify things. A lot of these are self-explanatory, but I want to go over them all anyway because a few of them are not. Gold, resources, and recruitment points on the top, that's all cost when you create the unit. Hit points, self-explanatory. Take all this damage, they die. Strength, increased damage. Higher strength, more damage done. Map movement is how fast they move on the map screen. Now, this is important when you're on the map screen, which is the screen you see in the background. Basically, the higher this is, the more provinces they can move in one turn. But do keep in mind, when you start mixing in other units with different map movement, or your commander has a map movement, your whole army will take into consideration the lowest map move unit as that army's map move. It is possible to move multiple spaces in a turn. Heck, it's even possible if you have sneaky units or stealth units to move multiple provinces into enemy territory and avoid combat and then ambush them. So map move is pretty important, especially if you're trying to make a mobile army. But all armies can move one map tile no matter what the map move of the army is. Another really interesting parameter is size. So size is the little squares in battle. Each unit takes up so much of a square, so many of them can fit in a square. The maximum square is 6. That's how much size a square can hold, is 6. So this unit being 3 means 2 of these guys can fit in one battle square. So, because 3 plus 3 is 6. If these guys were 2, we could have 3 units in there. If this guy was a 4, only 1 could fit, or a 5, only 1 could fit, or a 6, only 1. But the caveat to that is, if this guy's a 4, which is actually a pretty nice number, and there was a 2 unit that was in the battle with them and they moved into the square, they could actually share that square with the size 4 unit because, like I said, 6 is how high the squares go. And there's a little bit of strategy and synergy with that to help like giant units kind of deal more damage, because the main problem is the more units in a square, the more attacks you get per turn. Because if there's 3 of these dudes in a square and they all do 14 damage, that's 3 hits during a combat round. Or if I just have a single giant, that's only 1 hit. So there is kind of a give and take with that kind of stuff when it comes to the battles, when it comes to the size of the unit and when you're in battle. So just something to pay attention to. There's a little bit more and stuff, but that's kind of the basics. Now we got protection. That's just how much damage the unit can negate, how much they can reduce. Same thing with magic resistance, how much they can resist. Morale is interesting. Basically, the majority of all these stats, 10 is the baseline. 10 is what an average human can do in the game, and it's kind of used as a guide to tell you if something's kind of good or bad. So if everything's 10, they're completely average, and they're just a basic human. 10 hit points, 10, across the board. Now, morale is unique because now this is at 11, which is all right. It's okay. 10 is like the lowest you want to really take morale. Once you start going below 10, it gets pretty rough, and even 9 is questionable, but anything 8 or lower is like, wow. They're going to rout so fast. Like 8 morale, 7 morale, you could have 100 of that unit, and like 10 of them die, and they're all going to rout. So you want to have high morale so the unit doesn't rout and your units continue fighting, because that's the number one way you're going to lose battles, is if your units rout too fast. There's a lot of ways to manage morale and take care of that, but just this is a very important stat to take into consideration. Now, strength is how much damage they do. More strength, more damage. Attack skill and defense skill are unique because basically what happens is your attack skill is basically your chance to hit. Your defense skill is your chance to avoid damage. Higher either one of those is, you're either going to hit more or you're going to dodge attacks more. So that's kind of the basics of those. I mean, like I said, you click on all these and it'll tell you what they do, but that's the gist. That's what makes the most sense. If a unit has a ranged weapon or is capable of ranged attack, precision matters. Higher precision, more accurate they are, better chance they're going to hit their target. Combat speed is how fast they move on the battlefield. You generally want your army to advance together, so if I had like a combat speed 5 unit with combat speed 13, I'd probably want the 13s to hold, to wait, and let the slower units get ahead of them, and then they kind of rush ahead. And there's other ways to kind of mitigate that and deal with that, but you definitely don't want your fast units to get to battle before everybody else can help them. Fast units tend to be a little bit weaker, you know, so keep that in mind. Encumbrance is how much weight's on the unit. Pretty self-explanatory. You can read that. Age, XP. Units do gain XP and they do level up and they get more stats. So keeping your units alive is very important. Fatigue is very important as well. Fatigue will build up as the battle goes on. The unit casts spells, and this can have a lot of detrimental effects, especially if it exceeds 100. So make sure you can manage that and don't let that get too high. When it comes to a weapon, you can click on it and get this info. You can see the length of 3. This attack value is the value that rolls against the target's defense value to determine if it hits or miss. So this, you know, this is what rolls against the defense skill. Damage, armor. We got furs on. They give 7 protection. So this is where that comes from. But then we have a -1 defense, so that's why that's a 6. And then we have 1 encumbrance, which contributes to this encumbrance along with the weapon. And that's pretty much the basic stats of the unit. Now, these are going to be different with all kinds of units. We can go over here to my Centaur Archer, and we can see, you know, he has way less protection. I mean, he's not even wearing armor. But he has a hoof for an attack, a bronze dagger, and a longbow. You know, and all these things. Like I said, moral of the story is 10. We got 13 morale, 13 defense skill, which is even better than the satyr, and then attack skill of 10. But if you take anything from this video, or like remember anything, just remember 10 as the magic number to compare all of your main like battle stats to. Obviously encumbrance and map move and stuff isn't like 10. But when it comes to the main battle stats, 10 is the average. And you can judge right there if a unit's kind of good or bad off of that. Now, it's not always true. There are exceptions and things, but it'll give you a good baseline to use. And that's pretty much the details of units. I mean, mages are obviously different. You know, you're going to focus on other things. But when you look at a commander, you got all your leaderships down here. How many living units, magic units, undead they can command. So that'll help you understand in your commanders. Generally, you don't want your commanders to fight, because when they die, the whole squad, the whole army routes that they're commanding, so that's not good. But overall, this should help people understand things a little bit better and get an idea of how the game works and how it kind of calculates battles and how things are decided. And one major thing, too, that I want to cover before I wrap up this video is pay attention to the unit's properties, their little special traits. A lot of these are important. Just click on them, read them. They can really decide how you want to play that unit, how you want to use that unit. So always check these, see what the special properties are, you know, what the traits of the unit are, because that can make or break a unit in battle for sure. So, as always, if you guys have any questions or comments, please drop them down below. I'm sorry this video was so long. I didn't want it to be this long. I thought I could do it a little bit quicker, but I kind of started going into too much detail and just ranting. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next one. As always, I hope to see you then. Have a good one. Later. Peace out, guys.